Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, you thought FIFA was bad. This was all much worse. Corruption and cheating combined. It was a German television documentary that exposed the problem a year ago. It prompted a follow-up inquiry into doping in athletics, Russian athletics in particular. And that has proceeded to a more dramatic outcome than anyone anticipated. The Olympic Games in London were, in a sense, sabotaged by the admission of athletes who should not have been competing, it says. And be clear, the most explosive chapter of the report has not been published, the one on the International Association of Athletics Federations, the IAAF. Material has been given to Interpol so that a proper criminal investigation into charges of corruption and bribery can be pursued. All in all, not good. The journalist Mark Daly has been investigating doping in sport for years, and he sent us this report from Geneva.
The prediction was that it would be one of athletics' darkest days. Publication of the World Anti-Doping Agency's Independent Commission's findings into corruption and doping at the heart of athletics. The reality, it was so much worse than that.
Well, for 2016, our recommendation is that the Russian Federation be suspended.
Dick Pound's commission was launched after allegations were made in a German documentary last year that the Russian Athletics Federation was riddled with corruption and was involved in covering up positive dope tests by its athletes. Today, the documentary was proved correct. Russia had been involved in state-sponsored doping, perhaps even reminiscent of the old Soviet days, corruptly covering up positive drug tests and destroying more than 1,400 test samples. Russia has been the Wild West of doping, facilitated by athletics officials who acted more like gangsters. And now they could be banned from the next Olympics. It's not just Russia that's in the frame. There is a second part to this story that's missing from this report, and that's because the former head of athletics governing body, the IAAF, Lamine Diack, and several others, are subject to a criminal investigation. But what the report does say is that it found corruption and bribery at the very highest level of the IAAF. So what does that mean for its newly crowned president, Sebastian Coe? Mark Daly, BBC Newsnight. Is Sebastian Coe the right man to lead the IAAF out of this mess?
I think that Seb Coe is somebody who can grasp this and be transformational enough to bring about some change in athletics. I hope so, because his sport is at risk if he doesn't.
I think the difficulty that Seb's got is he was there throughout this entire period. He was a vice president for 7 years under Lamine Diack. Obviously, he's got long-standing links to the IAAF. He has to now get on the front foot and create a separation between his era and that of Lamine Diack, and he'll find that very difficult to do.
Just 3 months ago, when he took the presidency, Lord Coe was fulsome in his praise for Lamine Diack, calling him the spiritual leader of the IAAF. Those comments must now surely haunt him. Sebastian Coe said yesterday that he was not in favour of banning Russia. Today, he's been forced to recalibrate his comments, and he's now seeking approval from his fellow IAAF members to consider sanctions. And Dick Pound? Well, he's being heralded as the man who might save athletics, and that's a role that Sebastian Coe was hoping to fill himself.
I want to see a sport that is responsible and transparent and accountable, and I will do anything it takes to achieve that. But this will not be a swift road. This will be tough.
So can Lord Coe, who famously delivered the Olympics to London, deliver the rehabilitation of his sport's wounded reputation?
It's absolutely not the first time that Seb's been very quick to defend someone who is under investigation. I mean, we saw it in the case of Alberto Salazar. We're still waiting for the USADA report into those allegations, and yet he was quick to come out and basically say that Salazar would be cleared of those claims. Likewise, with the Russians, he's come out and he said that they probably prefer to rehabilitate them from within, and then within 24 hours, Dick Pound's come out and said they should be banned. I think he would have been wiser on both those occasions to have kept his powder dry.
Dick Pound today publicly thanked the journalist who broke the IAAF story, Hajo Seppelt. The only thanks that journalist says he's received so far from the IAAF was a threat to sue him.
Well, we can talk to that German journalist who did get all this going for ARD, the German broadcaster, was Hajo Seppelt. He joins us from Geneva. Congratulations on Scoop of the Decade. Hajo, just tell us, all talk of suing you and all of that's presumably just completely gone out the window. What are they saying to you now, the IAAF?
Nothing so far. I have no contact to IAAF officials. No one contacted us since the beginning of the year. We tried several times to get interviews. The SEPCO, the first one, we tried to get in Monaco. That was after our first documentary was aired in December 2014, but refused to talk to us. I was waiting for him for 5 hours. He promised me to come, and he didn't show up. And later on, we sent him several emails, official requests by ARD German television to get interviews in regards to our second documentary about the suspicion of widespread blood doping in athletics, but he refused to comment. And in Beijing at the World Championships, it was exactly the same. He refused to talk to me, and he gave an interview to ARD German television, but not to me. He was insisting on that the interview has to be someone else.
Sorry, the he in that case is who?
Excuse me?
When you say he refused to give me an interview, in that answer, you're talking about who? About Seb Coe?
Yes, I talk about Seb Coe all the time, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And have you been surprised by anything that Dick Pound has uncovered that you hadn't uncovered? I mean, maybe you're surprised that it's been going on since you made your documentary about it.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. The line is very bad. Can you repeat?
I'm sorry, but no, have you been surprised by anything they found, Dick Pound found? I was surprised the Russians continued since your documentary. It's going on now.
I tell you, to be very honest, I'm not surprised about the Russian reaction. It's always the same. When we aired the first documentary, the Russians said it is a pack of lies what we did. They told me that I'm an ignorant journalist, that I have no clue about anything. What made me a little wondering, because I'm working on doping stories as a doping research investigative journalist for 20 years around, and the Russians claim that I don't know the rules and I don't know how to work on this. But to be honest, it's always in sports that people react in a harsh way. Maybe the Russians a little bit more aggressive, but in general you have always to consider that in doping, in sports, mostly the messengers are the people who will be blamed by the federations, and not the people who are really responsible for the doping problem.
Yeah. Well, hey, your point has now been taken, accepted and reported the world over. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Now, there were two layers of charges today. First are, of course, the ones against the Russians, as if there weren't enough complicated relationship issues with the Russians at the moment. The second, though, are the ones against the IAAF, the international athletics body, which is now run by Lord Coe. Let's take stock of the charges and their implications. I'm joined by the European Championships 10,000 metres gold medalist, Jo Pavey, from her home in Devon. Now, she lost out in previous races to athletes who were subsequently disqualified for alleged doping, including missing out on a bronze medal in 2007. And with me in the studio is sports journalist Mihir Bose. Well, look, good evening to you both. Jo Pavey, let me start with you. How aware at the time were you that the Russians were doped?
If I'm honest, you know, I did have my suspicions about certain athletes, but I think this report has been shocking to everyone in the sport. You have your suspicions about certain athletes, but the fact that it's actually uncovered that a nation was involved in systematically doping their athletes, you thought the days where that could happen in sport were behind us, and it's very devastating and shocking. And yeah, times where I finished, you know, lying flat on my back on the track, giving it everything I've got, and, you know, I've missed those moments on the podium. I can never get those back, and it's really disappointing.
What now,
you know,
Jo?
it could be that
Jo,
I'm retro.
Sorry to interrupt you, but what now do you think the effect of Russian cheating was on your career?
Yeah, I think, you know, there has been Russian athletes at times that have finished ahead of me. You know, it can be hard to mention certain names, but Lydia Shibukova is one of them who's been banned in certain competitions, and she's an athlete that in the past has kept me out of medal positions. But the fact that it's seems that it's systematic in that country is devastating, and you know, it's likely that I might be awarded a bronze medal retrospectively from 2007 World Championships, and I finished 4th that day, lying on the track flat on my back, just gave it absolutely everything, and rather than it being a moment of disappointment, it should have been a moment where I was on that podium having won a medal for my country, and I can never get that moment back. So it is destroying, you know, not just my career but other athletes' career.
Mihir Bose, let's just start with the Seb Coe question. I mean, he's a popular guy here. He ran London 2012. Do you think he's the guy to clean up athletics? He's been an insider in the IAAF, hasn't he?
Yes, I think Seb is a very trusted guy. He got the games, ran the games very well, great athlete. But that is the problem. He was 8 years vice president. He comes in basically as Lamine Diac's successor. And if you notice, what the head of the Russian Federation has said is that any suspension will have to go to the IAAF Council. So there again, you go back, if you like, into the old council, which is still existing, deciding on suspending a federation member. So how does Coe step outside and become the man who cleans everything up? That's a difficult thing to do. I'm not saying he can't do it, but it's a difficult thing to do.
We've all been saying Sepp Blatter can't clean up FIFA, and suddenly our guy's in charge of an institution that's been systematically corrupt. Where, in the history of sporting scandals, does this one stand, do you think?
I think this one takes the gold medal. There's no question about it.
Really?
Yes, two things. First of all, FIFA's corruption is, if you like, business corruption. Very bad, no question about it, but the banks could have done it in other walks of life, people taking money, you know, envelopes passing because you want to bid for the World Cup. This is about sport. If you watch Lionel Messi score a goal, you don't want to believe that he's passed the odd fiver to the goalkeeper, you know. It's similar in athletics. You don't want to believe the one who's won the gold medal has somehow done it by cheating. And you know, that is one aspect. And the second aspect is, in the last 15 years, we have believed, or we've been led to believe, with the existence of WADA, laboratories like Moscow and so on, that we are coming to grips with this. There is a system. What it shows is the system doesn't work. Yeah. There is a flaw in the heart of the system that can't be corrected.
Joe, do you trust Seb Coe as the man to clean up athletics? It's your sport.
I think Seb Coe is very passionate about the sport. I think he would admit himself that it's going to be a much harder job than even he first realised. And, you know, he has said that he's been shocked and dismayed by this report and has got a harder job to do than he first thought. But, you know, his ideas of an independent anti-doping agency, you know, all athletes worldwide need to go through the same rigorous testing procedures, and there should be nowhere for anyone to hide. And even when we, you know, there is talk of considering banning Russia from the Olympic Games. I mean, if that is what is necessary to make sure there's no cheats on the start line, then that sort of tough measures are going to be carried out. I mean,
let me
I
just
must say that obviously clean athletes could suffer in that respect, but if that's what's necessary at this stage.
Let me put the banning. If Russia isn't banned, because effectively the independent commissioner said they need to be suspended for 2016. If Russia isn't banned,
well, it will raise enormous questions about the Olympics. It will raise enormous questions about the International Olympic Committee, because that is another curious organisation where it doesn't run the individual sport. It provides a festival of sports over 2 weeks. Then we will ask the question, how powerful is it? And remember, this is sports connected with politics. There is, as you mentioned, Mr. Putin, who sees sport as, if you like, a weapon of the Russian foreign policy. Now, is he going to accept a ban?
Mihir, you've been involved in a lot of sports, I mean, covering them for many years. Why is sport, why are international sporting organisations so prone to corruption of one form or another?
Because they're badly run. Because the people who run them are not very good. The best people don't come in to run sport, they go elsewhere. The best people are actually the advisors. They make a lot of money out of sports, the lawyers and the accountants surrounding them. And the best sportsmen don't come in. They've made their money, they've got their honours, and they go away. In fact, that is the basic problem with sport. And sport has become business, And as it has become business, it hasn't acquired any ideas of how accountable it should be, how transparent it should be. And it's run by very, very incompetent, not always corrupt, very incompetent people who can be easily corrupted.